And staff is only on Zoom, by the way, right now.
Say that again.
Staff, Roxy for the are the only people on Zoom. Right
Okay.
now, so there's no the public or other staff.
All right, good to know. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Calling to order the Technical Advisory Committee of June 25th, 2024. I'm now writing 2024 and not 2023 anymore, so we're definitely in it. We'll start with introductions.
I am Shauna Gauze with the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and Regional Flood Protection Authority.
Hey, Riverda, SCTA, RCPA.
Derek Montani, CD Cloverdale.
Karina Wilson, City of Santa Rosa.
Ken Eichstadt, City of Petaluma.
Mario Landeros for Sebastopol.
Neither Idaho, Sonoma County, SBI. Public Infrastructure. Thank you.
Mike Berger, City of Sonoma.
I'm Steve Urbanek with Sonoma County.
I'm from Laughlin, Sonoma County PAC.
Craig Scott, City of Cotati.
Mona Ibrahim, Town of Windsor.
Elizabeth Tyree, Sonoma County Regional Parks.
Larry Zimmer, City of Healdsburg, and in the back.
Taylor Ray, SCTA.
Adam Garcia, SCTA, SCTA.
So they close at PTA or CPA.
Great, thank you. No public comment since we have no public. Approval of the meeting minute. Does anyone have anything to add or change? Seeing none, can I get a motion? And a second. Thank you. The meetings are approved as is unless someone objects. Item number 4, Safe Streets for All. The grant partial award, is that Chris? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to give a quick update on our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. So unfortunately, we weren't successful in getting the capital portion of the grant funded, but we were awarded a partial award for the supplemental planning portions of the grant. So that includes developing a countywide safe routes to school plan, updating a Healdsburg safe routes to school plan, working on speed limit reduction resources, and as part of that, completing a speed reduction study in Healdsburg. We've also included a little bit of budget to improve the Vision Zero data dashboard and help automate some of the reporting associated with progress in Vision Zero. And then the City of Petaluma also included a safety study for the Lakeville Highway Corridor. So we're actually working with Federal Highways to figure out the grant agreements for that supplemental planning work. And we had a debrief on the capital side on Monday and got some good feedback from USDOT on, how we could compete better on the capital side. So with that, that's kind of where we're at. So more to come soon. And I'll go ahead and turn things over to David in case he'd like to talk a little bit more about the debrief or potential future capital applications or implementation applications.
Thanks, Chris. So we are very interested in resubmitting our previous grant for the upcoming NOFA that should be coming out next 2 to 3 weeks. We did have a debrief on Monday with the USDOT staff. They gave some good feedback on how we can improve the application, focusing more on kind of collision patterns and trying to kind of tell our story a little better. We had a trouble because we have a hard page limit. I think it's 25 pages, and we had 6 different projects or so. So it's kind of hard to tell a whole story with all that in there. Another feedback we got was there's a cap in the Safe Streets for All guidance of maximum 150 million for implementation projects or construction projects being awarded to any state. And so we're really competing against other California jurisdictions for that 150 million. There is, however, not a cap on demonstration projects, which could be kind of quick build, and striping type projects. And so we're somewhat interested in kind of redoing our application and seeing if there are some projects that might fit that category, because if we can't get implementation funding awarded, we'd like at least get something built. So we're targeting that, and we're potentially looking at consultant assistance to help out on the application, since Chris and I's time is very limited to be able to work on applications. But that's where we're at right now. We may be talking to some of you some more to talk about potential projects and swapping out projects that are in the last application. But happy to answer any questions that you have.
Is there any advantage to, making more applications as opposed to combining many projects in one application?
What we've heard is USDOT really wants to see one application from kind of overlapping jurisdictions, so they wouldn't necessarily want to see one from Sonoma County and one from SCTA since we overlap. Previously in the fiscal 22 round, I believe City of Santa Rosa submitted application on their own. I'm not sure if anyone else did, but we're trying to kind of follow the same pattern we did last year and go with the regional approach. Since safety and vision zero is very important to us, and we want to help all of you get funding for your projects.
Do we know what kind of feedback Santa Rosa got on theirs?
So we included their bicycle pedestrian crossing, which was the fiscal year 22 application in the fiscal year 23, and we got similar feedback that we did in 22, that we kind of really had to be able to tie the collisions in the neighboring corridors in Grenville Road and College Avenue to the best bike pedestrian crossing, and be able to calculate future bicycle pedestrian usage better, but it's very hard to be able to quantify that since the crossing hasn't been built yet.
Yep.
Did you hear any feedback that maybe one or two big projects where you have locations where, I mean, obviously accidents is the key, and obviously fatality, injury, accidents reduction is probably even bigger. Are there, you know, locations where you can target that from a regional perspective? Maybe you get, you know, it's someplace between the city of Pelham and the county, Santa Rosa and the county. Pick a jurisdiction that maybe you focus it more and then make it a bigger project, a median project or something like that. That's, you know, expensive, but you know, still is cross jurisdictional.
Yeah, that was one of the feedbacks that we got, was kind of trying to tie all the projects together with some kind of like crash factors, or trying to figure out how to tell the story through a group of projects that achieve the same result. In the last application, we had many different types of projects, and it's kind of hard to tell that unified story. So I think that's something we're going to consider.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, Chris and David. Item number 5, Measure M and Go Sonoma 5.1 invoice obligation status.
I just wanted to note that on Zoom, since we started, we have Charles Smith from Sonoma County Transit, Rachel E. from Santa Rosa City Bus, Rob Sprinkle from City of Santa Rosa, and Tom Conlon, a member, all on Zoom now. So just wanted to let you and the rest of the group know.
Well, thank you for that. And we did miss the opportunity for public comment, but I will open it up again in case someone on Zoom cares to speak. Seeing none, onward to item 5. Shauna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item under number 5 is just the invoicing and obligation status. You see this every month. It provides you with a snapshot of where you are with invoicing or with appropriations for Measure M projects that have open or expected obligations. And if you have any feedback, please contact me.
5.2.
5.2 is an informational item. Just a reminder that Measure M maintenance of effort reporting is due on February 15th. I have heard from some of you, but not all of you. So if you have not yet submitted your Measure M maintenance of effort reporting, please get that done so that we can report out. We do use the maintenance of effort reporting to determine your compliance, and then if you are not in compliance, then we use your percentage of difference between your compliance and or the baseline and your actual reporting to adjust your LSR allocations. So it does make a difference. So please get that reporting in.
There is a list, page 10 of the agenda packet, of what agencies have submitted to date.
That is not to date. That is as of the agenda packet development. So there, I have received a couple more since then.
Okay, I will disregard the packet from now on. If there are no comments, we'll move on to 5.3, Measure M, LSR, and LBT allocation estimates for 24-25.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, LSR and LBT allocation estimates are due to the to Measure M project sponsors or recipients of those funds, but no later than February 1st of each fiscal year. We are providing your estimates for the following year. You know how they're determined. We use 50% road miles and 50% population to determine your LSR. And we use population entirely, much like TDA, for your LS or LBT allocations. It is worth noting at this time, and it seems to not always register when you get to the point of doing your Measure M annual reporting that you do in September. That last question that says, have your road miles changed? And everybody goes, not applicable. It's like, it is applicable because if your road miles have changed, it affects your formula. So if road miles have gone up, that means your portion would increase. If your road miles have gone down, it means your portion will decrease, right? It's part of the formula. So it is important to report your total road miles every year in September when you submit that annual reporting.
Any questions? Yeah, please.
And maybe this is why, so under the road miles, there are a couple of jurisdictions like ours that are in bold, or those the changed ones.
That's right.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions? I had one. Healdsburg is listed under the local bus transit. And
Yes.
go ahead.
Please finish your question.
Well, since Healdsburg doesn't run transit anymore, I was just wondering why there and if that's normal.
It is normal, and it is listed separately because it was listed in the original measure. So there was an agreement between Healdsburg and Sonoma County Transit for Sonoma County Transit to assume responsibility.
Got it.
for
So it's
providing
listed
transit.
separately and then it goes back to them.
It goes to the.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you
that's
for the
correct.
clarification. If there are no other comments, questions, we will move on to 5.4, Go Sonoma onboarding and quarterly reporting demonstration. And I think we have Trinity for a demonstration.
Looks like she's not online.
Okay.
She is just sent me an email. She might have to get it in.
Just send her a link directly just in case.
Looks like she's connected now.
Trinity, are you? There you are. Okay, perfect. So we were just getting to your item and you're just.
Yeah, for some reason, the link I was given did not allow me to get in, so glad to be here.
Perfect. It is time for your presentation, so take it away.
Okay, very good. Let me go ahead and this. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me see if I need to do something in the Zoom here. How about share screen? Does that, okay, maybe that's it.
Loading. There we go. And
All right, excellent. Thank you for your patience. So during my presentation today, I'm going to cover the process and schedule expectations for the fact sheet updates, the onboarding form, and the quarterly reporting form. And at the end, I'll be available to answer any questions that you might have. So we're currently in the first quarter, and it has been decided that the current December 2023 fact sheets that are currently published do fulfill the requirements for the quarterly one reporting. So the good news is your next one due is not until April the 1st. You will be receiving the links to your project directory, as well as a request to set up your onboarding meeting with Shauna and David. There will be a total of 3 remaining quarterly reporting cycles, as shown here, as well as the due dates for the updated fact sheet files and the targets for having the fact sheets available on SCTA's website. Grant recipient in this slide is the jurisdiction that has received the grant funds, and SCTA will either be David or Shauna. So please note that through the links, you're going to have full access to modify and create the files. So you do want to be really careful. And when you go into the project directory, what you'll see is you'll see a baseline information form, a file, and the what I call the fact sheet baseline file. So in the baseline information file, what you will have in there is the data that was accumulated from the applications that you submitted, the links to the applications, as well as links to the July and December draft fact sheets that were created. The data from these reports were used to populate the baseline file, which I'll demonstrate towards the end of this presentation. The purpose of the baseline file is really to capture all of the project's data history, as well as set the baseline project understanding. The real updates will begin with what we call the quarterly reporting. The quarterly reporting form is created from the baseline form. Again, I'll demonstrate that shortly. And the file naming convention is as shown below. Okay. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and just go through. So here's what you will see when you get your links. And I'm just using Cloverdale as an example. So Cloverdale has 2 different grants. The files will be set up. You'll be able to click on the particular link. And as I mentioned earlier, there will be a baseline information file. And again, this has the application information. So all of the information that was used to populate your baseline file is all at your fingertips. When you open up the baseline file, you'll see that there are several tabs. Slowly loading up. Beginning with the onboarding form, which you've heard several times. Again, this is to capture all of the history of the project. This is the public fact sheet document, which once you populate the file, it'll be nicely populated and it'll be ready for print. I think it's loading kind of slow, so we're missing a file here. But above here is actually the map of the project. And so when you print it out, everything is already set up for you. Pay attention to these icons here. These are the icons that are shown on this last page, which you can use depending upon what's applicable to your project. So you'll be able to select the icons that represent the benefits for your project and use it on the public fact sheet.
Trinity,
And then,
seeing,
is it kind of slow on your end?
not at all.
Not-
It's, yeah,
Are
it's,
you on 2 screens?
we're on, yeah, we're only seeing the PowerPoint presentation, not the file itself.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Okay, let me try closing.
Yeah.
Let me close it out. Let me do a stop share and then go back in again and see if that doesn't help. Actually, you know what? Let me go back because I think I need to share the screen so that when I navigate, you'll be able to see everything. Let's try that. Okay,
Yeah.
I think you should be seeing it now, yes?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let me go back one, because that means that you did not get a chance to see the actual files, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you should now see the Cloverdale directory.
We do.
Okay. Oh. And then again, as I'm clicking through it, you'll see the baseline information and the fact sheets. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and skip back to the fact sheet. Oops, wrong one. Okay, you should see the fact sheet now, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the sheets that I mentioned earlier about the onboarding sheet, the public fact sheet. This sheet here has all of the data that came from your application. So it's dated from January 2021, the July update in 2023, and then the December 2023, which is the most current. So the way this works is that by updating this particular sheet, it will go ahead and update the public fact sheet for you. So the same premise will apply once we create the April update for you as well. But for the purpose of this particular sheet, the key item that I wanted to go through is the onboarding form. So the onboarding form has been created for each of your projects with all of your information from between your applications and what was extracted from the various updates. So you'll see in here, the first part of it is really the project requirement information. And then it'll go into the various phases of your project. And here is where you'll select and provide information relative to your project. If it doesn't apply, you'll put a not applicable. So in this case, this is already taking all the data that was from the December 2023 sheet and populating it for you. So you won't need to touch these. These are what you had inputted before. And here you'll just answer the questions, whether or not was it a PSR that you had for the scoping phase or the PSR equivalent. And when you stick on this here, you'll see that there were notes to kind of explain what these various acronyms mean. And there's also a column to the right where you can input your notes in column E. And we encourage that you just, if you're not sure about something, it's best to start writing down notes so that you can have a very good conversation between you and David and Shauna. And then in the environmental phase, these again have been pre-populated in case you have either a CEQA document or a NEPA document. You can select here what type of document you have, or if it's not applicable. There are also some key mini milestones within the environmental phase that become important. So to the extent they're applicable for your project, you'll want to provide those dates because it will help David and Shauna to have points of check-in with you. Design phase, there are different requirements, whether you need a level 1 or a level 2. Again, wherever you see a comment, if you go in here, it'll explain what it means and why it's important. Similarly, in the right-of-way phase, some projects might have fees, you might have acquisitions. So these are some key right-of-way features for your project, again, that will inform if the project might be a little bit more complex and may take a little bit more discussion during the phase. And then leading to the construction phase. There's only one form currently right now that's a little bit different, and that one has an operations segment for those projects that are operational type projects. And then below, it'll go into the public information. So you'll have a chance to be clear on what sort of public requirements are required for grant recipients. And then also there'll be a discussion about funding, about how to obtain funding for your project at the right time. Okay. So as I mentioned in this example here, once the onboarding is done, this file will be deemed complete and it'll be ready to actually go in and create the, we're going to try to see if this can be done easily and hopefully that you can see everything that is on my screen. Okay, what I want to do is walk you through how you would take the baseline file and convert it into the fact sheet file. So first you just go ahead and copy and paste. Then go into your copy and you rename the file as we indicated. The name, oops, the naming convention. And I did time myself on this before, and it was exactly like a minute and a half. So, and now it's been saved. Then you'll go in to the file. You'll go to your fact sheet data 2023 file, and you'll rename this because now it'll be April 24. All of your update information, you'll copy that. Will now be your baseline because it's the new month. You'll update the peach fields. And then you'll update any status that you have. So there's two areas where you cut and paste. So one is the schedule and the other was the funding. So you'll do the same thing here. You'll pay special, replace the values, and then you can begin to update. You can then delete these two pages because they're no longer necessary. And your file is now complete. Your public fact sheet is now updated to April 2024. Your schedule is updated and your funding is updated. So if your schedule and your funding has not changed, then there's nothing that you need to do to the peach sections. But if for some reason, let's say for instance, your number did change and you made a change, it'll be reflected here under the change. So anytime that you show a change, there's an expectation that you put down why. So it might be something as simple cost increase or additional report. Okay. You'll also be expected to provide a description of the current quarter. So for the purpose of the April report, it would be for the work that was accomplished from January through the end of March. And then a description of the activities of the next quarter would be from April through the end of June. And then the project status has, already begun for you so that you just, again, the intent is that it just be very simple, bulletized. You don't have to provide a lot of details because this project status is what gets captured in the public fact sheet. But in the description of activities, you can put as much details as you want that you believe that David and Shauna will need. You also have an opportunity here under the community engagement summary to provide any additional community engagement events or activities that have been undertaken. Okay. And then in terms of this particular situation here, we read through the report and we identified that, there was benefits from accessibility, active transportation, and greenhouse reductions. But you as the project manager, if you believe that there are other benefits, you can simply go to any of these icons here and you can copy them and utilize them on your fact sheet. And of course, you can make some different adjustments there. Okay, so that really completes the usage of these documents, and I will stop there to see if you have any questions for me. Oh, wait, one last thing. So as you noted here, the onboarding sheet is kept in this main file, so which means that every time you have a new file, anyone that comes, maybe a person has taken over the project, they're going to have all the information ready at their fingertips in terms of what's been discussed and what the expectations are. I believe when we spoke to everyone, that was some of the change in resources and not having the history was an issue. So by this manner, as you create the new files, the most current file will always have the expectations ready for reference. And with that, I'll stop for any questions.
I'm not seeing any questions.
They'll all show up when we do it the first time.
Yeah.
And we encourage you to play around with it because again, this is the first pass. And so it's, it's always very clear to the person who develops it, right? So we'll be putting it to the test, but we do encourage you. There's a lot of room for you to write notes and comments. We did check the connections numerous times, but that doesn't mean that, something didn't link in properly. But this should take out a lot of the issues that you have with creating the public fact sheet. As you saw there, literally it was a minute and a half to create this new file. And for the most part, these generally, we would not expect your costs to be changing significantly from quarter to quarter. So for the, most cases, it'll probably be exactly the same. But in the rare occasion that you do have it, that could isolate out the discussion. And again, you have a lot of room. You can pull this down. Nothing on this page gets printed to the public. So you can write whatever information that you need on here. The only area that is going to be on the public page is this project status. That's it. And here again, we just gave you some examples of short statements that you can make so that it just doesn't become laborious every quarter to have to come up with something new. It's really just, what's the status of your project? And then everything else is relative to your funds and your schedule.
We have a hand up from Rob Sprinkle on Zoom.
Please, Rob, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So my question is actually related to the file naming convention, and I'm just curious if we could put something else in there to identify either the project or the jurisdiction. My concern is that you're going to have the same title of the same spreadsheet for, the 9 jurisdictions or whatever, and if someone puts something in the wrong folder, it'll copy right on top of it without anyone really knowing. So you could potentially lose someone's data. I don't know if that's a valid concern or not, but that's something that I was just wanting to know.
Okay. I will leave that to David and Shauna. We can have further discussion. What we use right now to separate out the projects is this project assigned number. So none of these files, the naming is the same as any other file name in any of the other folders. And for purposes of control, only the city that's responsible for their folder will have access to their folder.
That's
your
helpful.
links, your links don't go beyond your folder directory.
But could SCTA potentially be like if they're getting all the different files together in, for a report or something like that, would they? I don't know, I just want to make sure the data is not lost accidentally is all I'm trying to.
Right. We had worries about that too. And so right now, all the files reside on VSCE's servers. And so we do have it backed up. It is a discussion that's ongoing because SCTA is converting into the Teams and also the county's platform. And so generally when they're on that sort of a service, there's routine backups. And if something does go lost, you can usually go back a little bit to get the file that you need. Everyone's just going to have to be really careful, I think, but for the most part, everyone is limited only to their server. And for SCTA, when they open up the folder, they'll be just creating a PDF of the fact sheet file for publication. So
Yeah, thanks, Trinity and Rob. And for the project numbering system, that was the numbering system we had from the applications from a couple years ago. So we may be looking at revisiting that in the future to make it more clear for folks.
But just to relieve any concern, each one of the projects has an individual number, right? So that naming convention up there says that it was the application from 2021, the jurisdiction in 01, that's Cloverdale. That's their number 2 project, phase 1. That's what that number means. So each application that you submitted or each phase of the project got a different number. So presumably if you're just copying and pasting that, then you should retain that individual number.
What about jurisdictions that have multiple departments probably working out of the same folder? We got parks, we got transit, we got maybe health and human services working on some of these things. Are they going to have individual folders for each department, or are they going to be all combined in one file? Just kind of speaking to what Rob's been discussing, that it gets a little more complicated for some of the larger agencies that have a lot of departments.
Yeah, I know for transit and public works for both the cities and the counties, we have separate jurisdiction ID numbers for those, but I don't know about regional parks or health.
Yeah, because you guys had joint applications, so each phase was given a different number, but the project itself, so for West County Trail, I believe there were 5 different phases of that project. So that last number would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so it would be separate.
I know when Hunter starts working on these things, he's want to copy Elizabeth's stuff and he might mess up Elizabeth's stuff, so just gotta make sure we don't do that.
We'll see. David and I have to discuss changing the naming convention, so it may be that we end up with a different system, but right now, each one of those numbers does represent an individual file, so it shouldn't cause any duplication problem.
Is there a decoder so we can reference what the name, what
Means,
it goes, yeah.
yeah, well, so that's one of the reasons why we don't like the numbers, right? Because you can't tell which project it is just by looking at it unless you know the project. Right now, each of those numbers is referenced on the SCTA website. There's a list of all of the applications that we received, so you have, and in all of the meetings that we had with everyone, that number was on the big spreadsheet. So for each individual project, that number is shown on the left-hand side in the first column. Not that one that you're looking at, but the big spreadsheet that we passed out at each one of the in-person meetings that we had with you guys. We haven't had any meetings with Cloverdale or Kentucky.
Yeah, so understand, links will be distributed,
That's correct.
and those links, are they, maybe I missed it, but for the individual file or for the jurisdiction?
For the jurisdiction. So each jurisdiction will have their own link, and within your link will be all of the applications for the projects that are receiving Go Sonoma funding.
And just call those, that is just link access to the files, there's no password protection, nothing like that. So
Nope.
the links supposed could be shared within
That's
the
correct.
organization, which could lead to some type of implementation
Yes.
within the organization. There's your care. Yeah, okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I appreciate the step-by-step instructions, Trinity. We'll have a recording of this meeting to go back over those again, but are there notes for the step-by-step? We don't have access to the recording, because that was a very thorough way to change the forms, but I'm not gonna remember it all.
So yes, I do have step by step. I'll provide those to Shauna for distribution.
Thank you.
Good idea, thank you.
Probably also save them in your link so that they're available for everybody. If you have the link, that file of instructions on how to do it will be saved in your link.
We're expecting a yellow book called, Updates for Dummies.
All right, not seeing any other questions. Thank you, Trinity. We're moving on to item 6, regional information update, 6.1 inactive federal obligation status.
So I don't like to bludgeon everybody at the meeting, but I haven't had any updates from anybody in a couple months. So please do review the list and let me know what the status of your project is if you're on the list.
Because Kim is leaving, so I'm working with him to close as much as possible. When you say sayonara,
I don't know if everybody else had heard, because not all of you have Ken Wynn anymore, but Ken Wynn has accepted a position with another department, so he's not even going to be in local assistance anymore.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
After how many years?
17.
Wow.
17 years, Ken is moving on to signage.
he has 2 degrees in engineering, and civil engineering.
Wow.
Now he gets to use that second one. All right, cool.
All right, the bludgeoning can happen in private. We'll move on to 6.2. MTC Community-Based Transportation Plan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This will be me up on the screen. So let me get some slides up really quick. All right, and make sure. There we go. So today I'll be talking about community-based transportation plans and our plans for developing a few of these in Santa Rosa and Rohnert Park this next year. This is related to a presentation I gave last month on the Community Action Resource and Empowerment, or CARE grant program that MTC is going to be kicking off sometime this year. So that has been delayed a little bit, but we have a check-in with MTC next week to find out the status and when that call for projects will be coming out. So hopefully at the next meeting, I'll have more information on that program, but wanted to let everyone know what we're planning on doing this next year in central Sonoma County. So the community-based transportation plan, or CBTP program, is a regional program that was developed by MTC to really focus on improving transportation options for underserved and marginalized communities across the region. And it's really focused on equity priority communities, which were previously known as communities of concern. So the goal here is to really focus on outreach and engagement and really get together with the community and residents to identify barriers and transportation issues they're experiencing on the ground, and then work on coming up with potential solutions and improvements with the end goal of a list of community identified transportation projects and solutions, and then identifying potential funding sources to actually implement those. So here's a look at equity priority communities in Sonoma County in the North Bay currently. So you can see there's a cluster in Santa Rosa and Northern Rohnert Park, but also equity priority communities in the Sonoma Valley Springs area and the Russian River area. So we've actually previously prepared community-based transportation plans for 4 different areas in Sonoma County. The Roseland area of Santa Rosa, the Russian River area in unincorporated Sonoma County, as well as the Springs area in Sonoma Valley, and then also Central Healdsburg. So those are all available on the SCTA website and the MTC website. So if you go to our website and search for CBTPs, you'll find more information there and links to those plans as well. And they all include those lists of projects. So through this planning process, a number of different types of projects have been identified, including new transit routes and stops, improved transit headways, bicycle and pedestrian improvements, sidewalk connections, improved traveler information and safety improvements. So a lot of different types of projects. A lot of these are pretty localized and small as well. So down to individual shelters at different bus stops and gap closures for sidewalks in neighborhoods. So we have a bit of additional funding from MDC to do some additional planning over the next few years. So we took a look at that equity priority community map and identified a few areas that we haven't studied in the past yet. So one of those is the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor in southern Sonoma, or Santa Rosa, from roughly the Highway 12 area in the north, running down to the Rohnert Park city limits in the south, and then bounded by Highway 101 and Petaluma Hill Road, but really focusing on the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor where all the housing and development and commercial activity is. So this area includes incorporated city and unincorporated areas. So we've been in discussion with Santa Rosa and county staff already about this planning effort, and we'll be coordinating with them along the way on this work. The area is quite heavily populated with over 10,000 people and 3,500 households here. So a lot of people living there. But over 50% of the households have incomes of less than 20% of the federal poverty level. So a lot of lower income communities, multiple families in the same home, situations like that. And over 60% of the area is minority population. So as many of you know, the area is really a mix of housing and commercial and industrial land uses, but unfortunately, it's really hard to get between where people live and job sites and activity centers in this area. So there are really fragmented connections between schools and homes and jobs. So a lot of needs there. The second area that we'll be looking at is Central Roanoke Park. This is centered along Roanoke Park Expressway and State Farm Drive. There are 2 equity priority areas or communities here. The census tracts are listed up above on the slide. Again, it's pretty heavily populated here with over 10,000 people and 4,000 households in the area. About a third of the households are lower income, over 50% minority population there. And again, it's quite similar to the South Santa Rosa area. There's a very diverse mix of housing and commercial and job spaces there. But again, it's fragmented and it's hard to get around if you're walking, biking, and don't have a car. So definite needs for connections there. And we've also coordinated with Edie at Roanoke Park to do some targeted outreach looking at the Copeland Creek and Highway 101 crossing area as well. So that'll be a focus of this planning effort. So here's a look at the different tasks we'll be undertaking as part of this effort. We're looking at kicking this off in February. We're taking an item to our board to describe the process and get their authorization to release a RFP. So we'll work on getting a consultant on board to help us with this process. And once we have a consultant hired, we'll work with them to establish a stakeholder committee made up of local staff, transit provider staff, school district staff, business community, things like that to help guide the process. And so we'd work with the stakeholders to develop a community outreach strategy, and then really dig into that outreach, hold a number of public meetings. And I would say there are a lot of other planning and other efforts going on in both of these areas right now. So we're trying to coordinate all the outreach. So we're not trying to meet with the same people 20 times, trying to coordinate a lot of that outreach and, talk to people at one meeting for these multiple efforts. So that'll be coordinated as well. But the main goal of that outreach is to identify transportation gaps and barriers, come up with a list, and then work with them to identify different strategies and types of projects that could help address those issues. So once we've gone through that, we develop a final community-based transportation plan, which would include an existing conditions summary, what do things look like there? What are the demographics? What's the transportation system look like? Definitely having that list of transportation projects and improvements and what the community would like to see. And then compile that and present it to stakeholders, community groups, and elected officials. And we'll definitely bring progress reports back to the TAC as well. So this is what we'd like to see out of the project. That primary thing is a list of community identified projects and then, access issues and barriers. But one thing that's important is funding some of these. So MTC has had a few different programs really focused on CBTP identified projects. One was the Lifeline Transportation Program that's kind of morphed into this CARE funding program. And then we'd have the final report and summary that could be used to go off after these implementation dollars. These are the different ways that we're planning on working with the community to identify these needs. One is our community meetings, getting out and talking to people, providing information at public hearings, having a project website where people can provide feedback and potentially even drop pins on a map for different issues and ideas they have, and then gathering comments on reports and documents. So that's where we're at right now. Definitely more to come. And happy to take any comments or questions at this time.
Not seeing any. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Item 6.3, update on the 2024 STIP Measure M 101 Funding Exchange and RM3 North Bay Transit Access Improvements Program.
So there's an item in your packet, but this is an update from an item that we brought you a couple of months ago, as part of the SCTA funding program. You'll remember we've had this discussion with several of you already. We asked for each community's top 5 priority projects. The projects were selected for the SCTA funding program. Some of them were, there were some left over. We've been meeting with everybody to try to determine those unfunded projects status and whether or not any of your priorities have changed, because we have this new funding opportunity with both Regional Measure 3 transit access and with the State Transportation Improvement Program. We have about $20 million available for the RM3 and $9 million in STIP. We did also have an action item where we got approval from the board to swap STIP funding with Measure M funding. So the $9 million will go, the $9 million of STIP will go onto the Highway 101 program, and we will use money from Measure M for projects, making that money a little bit more accessible. You don't have to go to Caltrans in order to get it. So the update today is this list of projects that you see before you in the handout, and hopefully you got it by email just before this meeting also. And what we would like to happen today is for you to review the projects that are on this list, make sure that we have in fact captured your remaining priorities as accurately as possible, so that we can start looking at these for consideration of funding with those 2 funding sources that I just mentioned. Our intent is to have verification with the TAC this month. This is a sort of an update for you, and we intend to come back to the TAC next month with a recommendation for funding. And then that information will go to the board subsequently. Are there any questions? Mike?
Between now and 30 days from now, if this is not correct, update it, get it back to you, and then next meeting.
Preferably sooner than 30 days, because we're going to be
Right.
in the process of
Yep.
making
The whole
yeah.
thing.
So if you could by the end of this week or early next week verify that these are accurate from what we've spoken to you about. For the 2 jurisdictions that we haven't yet met with, Cotati and Cloverdale, we will have that discussion, and then we'll provide you with our updated list to make sure that it's correct before we start trying to evaluate.
So the good news is your total project list fits within your $29 million budget.
Oh, yeah,
The 600, it's really nice. Yeah, it's gonna be easy.
Are these listed in like a priority order?
We did our best to reflect the priority order that we heard from the jurisdiction. So, I mean, it's not necessarily intended to be that way, but it's sort of sorted out that way. If there's something on this list that we didn't capture accurately, or if you want it reflected higher on the list, please let us know and we'll adjust.
The priority does matter.
I think it will certainly be one of the factors that we consider, yes.
But it won't be the only factor.
No, but I'm just saying it, not saying the level of significance, but it does have some significance to you guys deciding.
Yes,
So it is important to.
although we can't guarantee that you're gonna get your top priority item. Kind of depends on the available funding and all of the facts.
So will every jurisdiction get a project, or?
Also cannot guarantee.
What can you guarantee?
That we will evaluate all of the projects
And spend the 29 million.
and spend the 29 million.
Yeah, that's the guarantee.
Very easy.
Any other comments? All right, I feel like more questions are gonna be coming. Next up, the Sonoma County Travel Demand Model. I'm guessing that's Chris again?
That will be me, and maybe steal your microphone.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Adam.
Small house. Good afternoon, everyone. Adam Garcia, the data analyst here at SCTA, RCPA. Coming to you to share another installment in our travel model series. Let's see, that should work. Great. So today, as we've talked about, we've kind of gone an introduction to the travel model. We're going to be coming to you in the near future, talking about some innovations of trying to go to an activity-based model. But today, what we're looking at are our travel model guidelines. So this isn't necessarily the technical nuts and bolts, but more of the philosophical document of why do we have a travel model? What use is it for you guys? And how can we make sure that it's put to the best use? So I'm going to be talking a little bit briefly about just updating the guidelines, why we're doing it, how they're organized, but would really love to get some feedback from y'all. We have a few questions to prompt you. So officially, it's called the Sonoma County Administrative and Operational Travel Demand Modeling Guidelines, but we'll just call them the Travel Model Guidelines for now. So they were last adopted probably over a decade ago. A lot has changed since then in terms of our travel patterns. 101 has widened. Our travel patterns have changed from the COVID pandemic. Wildfires have ravaged a lot of communities and changed the population significantly. Also, as I mentioned, SCTA will be transitioning away from the more traditional trip-based travel model to one that is more activity-based. And we'll be talking about that more in future meetings. And then, of course, just wanting to make sure that the guidelines as they are today reflect really, what the priorities are for the model users for the jurisdictions. And so just as a quick aside, hopefully you all know this, but the reason the travel model is used is that when there are major projects that have very high VMT, it's important to be able to run those projects through the travel model, understand what the effects are on the surrounding transportation network, understand, what are the stress points, what needs to be changed, if anything, as a result of this project. It could be project level in terms of an individual building, but also specific plan, general plan, housing element. So a variety of different projects and plans to be used. So this is just a quick look at the table of contents. You can see that the travel model guidelines are broken up into two kind of main sections. One is the program administration. So thinking about the high level, the goals and the services that we provide for you all. And then the second part is more of the nuts and the bolts of the technical and operational policies, how we update our information, how we disseminate it out, what types of model validation we use, just to make sure that it is as accurate as possible when we're doing those types of reviews for plans and plan areas and projects. So we just have a series of questions here, kind of on the administrative standpoint. I'm open to any of these questions if you have thoughts on them. But I'll just go through them briefly. Is the Sonoma County travel model being primarily used to support the SCTA's planning priorities? Is it accurately maintained? Does it accurately represent current expected countywide travel? Are there data products and analytical services that are available through the program? Are these sufficient to meet your planning needs? And are there any significant unmet data needs that we should consider to revise the travel model or the products that come out of the modeling program? So just a few thoughts there, wondering if anybody has any
What kind of validation work have you guys done on your model? Gone out, seeing if there's proof in the pudding when you make a prediction on what the traffic's gonna be and what actual traffic looks like?
Yeah, so that's done through a couple different sources. One is what's kind of wrapping up right now is the travel behavior addendum, which uses kind of mobile data to be able to look at where those traffic flows are. And then, yeah, just more traditional traffic counts, seeing how well those are representative of those kind of key corridors, generally based off the data from those from your jurisdictions, just what's been collected, what's most recent, to make sure that what then is reflected in the model is what's being counted there on the ground.
How's it look? How's it going? Are you like dovetailing with the information you're getting, or?
We're not quite there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the terms of the process of updating the travel model, as you know, we've gone through and collected all of the different development projects. That'll go into updating our existing land use. And then also following that, we'll have to look at what future projects are on the horizon. That might be looking at general plan build out, for instance, some of the other development projects that might not have made the previous pipeline that we were analyzing. And then once that's done, then we could move into the actual kind of traffic modeling and look at how do the flows work between what we understand as the existing traffic network, transportation network, and then that's kind of when the validation process will take place once we have those updated land uses and the updated transportation network. So still a few more steps to go. Yes.
Does SCTA exclusively use the model or run the model, or is it made available to others? I guess what I want to know is, I'm asking about is how are projects evaluated? Are they, do we call you up and say, okay, run this for us, or would the model be available to a consultant, for example?
Yeah, it's generally the consultant comes to us to request what type of analysis needs to be done. So it's primarily done in-house. We'll share out the data, obviously, with the consultant, and they can then look at the different scenarios to try to, put it into whatever environmental planning document or staff report there is. But primarily it's used in-house. But yeah, just based off the request from kind of you giving to your consultant for whatever plan there might be, or it might be the developer, for instance, of the project as well, would come to us and want to ask for a particular scenario. Does that answer your question?
Follow-up question is,
Yeah.
what kind of bandwidth do you have? Like, is there a backlog of requests, or the word really hasn't gotten out yet? I mean, how often is it
So yeah,
used?
the requests are coming in as, I have one right now on my desk.
Okay.
So the turnaround time is usually about 2 to 3 weeks once we get the request to be able to run that model. All right, so moving on, maybe a few more questions from a technical operational view. We want to think about what type of performance criteria we can use to make sure that the modeling program is meeting your needs. So the first question is does the existing structure and functionality of the travel model can be used for long-range planning priorities of the SCTA? So that could be related to general plans or housing element, area plans. The second question, are existing land use updating procedures and protocols in place and working? This will probably be a question that you'll have a better answer to in the next couple months when we'll be going through this process in more depth with you individually. But essentially what we would be doing is looking at the development patterns. What do we understand from the last travel model, based off the traffic analysis zones, which is kind of roughly equivalent to census tracts. Have there been big increases in population or in jobs and different land uses within that area? So that's, you know, roughly the update procedure for land use. And then last question, is there a significant deficiency in model outputs that would warrant a major reconfiguration of the existing Sonoma County model structure, travel model structure? So I think that could be evident in potentially if the results of kind of a traffic analysis doesn't quite meet that gut check, for instance, if when we run the analysis and it shows maybe some big spike or not quite the spike that you would expect to see in traffic. So I'm not sure if people have had too much experience with the travel model, so some of these questions might be a little bit ahead of you, but just wanted to open them up one more time, see if there are any thoughts.
Chair, it looks like we do have a question from Tom Conlon online.
Go ahead, Tom, thanks.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Tom.
Great. Thank you. It's great to see this, especially this last slide. And congratulations on the progress on the travel model. But this slide with talking about performance criteria, I'm curious to what extent everybody thinks the current model is capable of supporting prospective mode shift forecasting, especially as we enter into the general planning process and at the county level, and as many of the cities continue to move forward on their own jurisdiction general plans. You know, I'm not terribly familiar with the model myself, but I'm curious to understand better. I think in the past, the model's been generally used as a tool, as Adam said, when a project is presented, which is a little reactive to the application. But when we are going forward with our general plans and our aggressive vehicle mile travel goals through Plan Bay Area 2050 and our own local goals, is the tool set you have now capable of really doing that? Evaluating, you know, if this corridor were made more bicycle friendly, or if transit was expanded on this corridor, how could that affect behavior and VMT?
Great, that's a great question. Chris, I see your hand raised. Did you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, I can field that. Thanks for the question, Tom. And, you know, I think it was Craig that asked about consultants using the model. And, you know, we're certainly, you know, we do pass the model along for consultants to use. I think one of the issues is just them having the technical know-how to actually run the model. So not all consultants have that. It's mostly the big ones that have a lot of staff that can do that. So that's definitely an option, but it doesn't happen all the time. So we have a process for doing that if anyone wants to. But Tom, getting to your question about looking at alternative modes, you know, our current model does an okay job of doing that, especially when you're looking at the jurisdiction scale or the countywide scale. You know, it's particularly sensitive to pricing scenarios and things like that. Where it's less sensitive is looking at more design, like local design type criteria and things like that. So, you know, that's one of the reasons we're looking at moving towards an activity-based model that provides a lot more sensitivity to that and trip chaining and things like that. So yeah, we're looking for ways to improve that going forward. So definitely on the work plan.
Cool. Thanks. Very helpful.
Any other questions? And did you have anything else, Adam, or?
that concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Item number 8, preliminary call for projects. Dana?
Hello. All right, so we brought the preliminary projects for the Transportation Development Act, Article 3, to our CDPAC meeting on Tuesday, so some of you heard about this already. But we're essentially putting out all the information that's necessary just for local jurisdictions to start their applications for the TDA 3 program for this upcoming year. We will be putting out an official call for projects once MTC puts out their fund estimate, which we're expecting by the end of February. And I'll also just note that MTC is looking at some minor updates to the TDA 3 policy and looking at adopting those in late February as well. So those will be incorporated into the final call for projects. Most of the changes are fairly minor about kind of the administrative piece, but I will just note that they are looking at adding to the list of eligible project types, purchases of street sweeping vehicles that can sweep class 1 and class 4 facilities. So I know that's been something of interest to jurisdictions that have been installing class 4s especially. So we do have the estimates that are included are what was reported by the county auditor for the upcoming fiscal year and distributed among the jurisdictions based on their share of the countywide population. Any funding that's not used by a jurisdiction in a given year is rolled over to the next call for projects. There's also an ability to borrow ahead for up to 2 years of your jurisdiction's allocation. So with that, I'll just say, look out for the final call for projects, but you can certainly get started and start bringing projects to your local bicycle advisory boards for review in the meantime. And happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Yes.
Quick question. So Dana, appurtenances along a trail, park benches, trash cans, just some of the accessories that might go along besides just the hardscape. Is TDA applicable for that?
I do not believe it is. It can cover things like sidewalks and crossings and bicycle facilities, but I don't believe that it can be used for kind of accessories.
Is there some place that I could go and just read up? And I don't want to send you down a rabbit hole, but I could go down and just for making sure we're.
Yeah, I think that MTC's resolution kind of has the basics of the what's allowed. And I don't think that that's in there, but the other place that we could look is in the TDA guidance. That probably has more detail. I'm happy to send you a direct link to that.
Yes, please.
And not related necessarily to this group, but Zero Waste Sonoma does have grants through Cal Recycle available for trash cans. If you're including recycling, it has to be the recycling and trash combo or all three with compost, but. Any other questions for Dana? I have one. If one has a approved project and let's say bids come in high, what is the process? Is there a process for getting additional TDA 3, or do you need to go through the grant application process again?
I think you would need to go through the grant application process again, and there's a place in the form where you can note if a project's already received TDA 3 funding from previous fiscal years, or is that what you're saying, that it's the project is?
It's hypothetical at this point.
Yeah.
We have not advertised the project, but I was just curious in case
So-
we end up short.
If it's a project that approved, it meaning that it's already had TDA 3 funding?
It is
or-
approved for TDA 3
Yeah.
money. We have it. We just haven't spent it yet.
Yeah, yeah, so I would say you would go through the application process and, there's a place in the application showing where, like, if you've received prior year TDA 3 funding, so this, you would just add it to that and show the total amount.
Okay.
No.
Thank you. All right, if nothing else, thank you, Dana, for that. And onward to item 9, the upcoming SCTA RCPA meeting of February 5th.
I believe Drew is pulling that up on the screen right now, Chair.
Excellent.
All right, here's the draft agenda for the SCTA RCPA Board of Directors meeting on February 5th. I just wanted to note that we're having the February 5th board meeting separate from the second Monday due to the Lincoln holiday. So we'll go back to our regular programming in March, but items that will go before the board on the 5th, you got December notes, a financial report for the second quarter, transit integration update, the Sonoma Marin Ag and County Climate Coalition Agreement, the 2023 annual report for Measure M. We see a Measure M bonding report as well. For the regular calendar, we're gonna have the election of the chair and the vice chair, the executive committee, as well as some ad hocs to discuss. The 2023 SCTA RCPA annual report, the 24 briefing book for SCTA RCPA, overall work plan and legislative principles. In the planning side, the community-based transportation plan update procurement will be presented to the board. Following will be our regular reports and announcements. That'll be it. And have the agenda packet out next week.
Thanks, Drew.
And just to note, the Measure M, the 2023 Measure M annual report will go to the Citizens Advisory Committee before it goes to the board. We don't bring it to the TAC because you guys provide us with all the information, so we figure it's, and we do send you the draft to look at. So this will be the polished report.
Any questions? Being none. Item 9.2, board and committee meeting dates.
This is just provided to the committee for all the meeting dates for all of SCTA and RCPA's public meetings. They were board approved last December, so these are the firm dates. But so if you have any questions.
A lot of meetings. All right, item 10, roundtable discussion, informational items. Anyone have anything? Would Smart like to update anything? No, she would not.
No, we can.
Hi, everybody. Joanne Parker with Smart. Yeah, just, we're looking for a lot of money, right? We're trying to find the funds to finish the Healdsburg Rail and Pathway Extension, and I think that's the primary focus, along with some finishing touches on the Windsor Extension, which is under construction. Both Windsor and Petaluma North will be open for revenue service in the 12 to 14 month time period. And we are contemplating the process forward on how to do project delivery on Healdsburg so that we're hopeful we can start the process without having all the funding identified. But in the meantime, we have 3 grant sources that are all state sources that we'll be applying for over the spring and summer and then into next fall. Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, Active Transportation Program, and hopefully we will be submitted as a proposal, but from the state or region for Solutions for Congested Corridors program, which is due in a year. The other one that I will just mention is, I know we're working with the county right now, actually, on submitting a raise application for a bunch of activities in the far north of the county. For us, it's project development on Cloverdale to Healdsburg. Flipping the story around so that it's north to south. And then the county has a repeat on an application for the Asti River Bridge, the summer crossing replacement. Excuse me. Gosh, is that enough, Larry?
I think so.
I don't know. We're still working on a station location in Healdsburg, but that'll go
That's a separate
forward.
topic, maybe after the meeting.
Yeah, right.
Right by the roundabout.
Right in the middle of the round.
Split the middle. Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add? Yes.
Santa Rosa has a couple. We have a new TPW director starting on Monday. So we're really excited. I think that's try number 4. So 4th time as a charm maybe. He's coming from Austin, Texas, but he's, I think, from Northern California. So I think he's coming back. And he has some experience in consulting around here. So very excited.
So you guys are bringing a Longhorn over here?
I didn't have
Just
these.
want to check his college credentials.
I had 2 others. One is that we are continuing street sweeping conversations with Recology. And we had pulled Petaluma staffing, which I think was very effective. And they're currently looking at how they can secure street sweepers. So they started to understand that we're serious about it and that they need to figure out a way to accommodate class 4 bike lanes. We haven't really brought up class 1s yet, so it's just on street class 4, but yeah, they're thinking about raising rates to accommodate, but then there's some logistical things like they're not street legal, so they have to get a truck and a trailer to haul them around. But they have done that in San Francisco. So it's doable, but it's also a different group. So they're just trying to learn what they can. And then my last one is that Santa Rosa just submitted a sustainable communities application, grant application 2 weeks ago, maybe. And we're asking for money to hire a consultant to do a complete streets network study within 1 mile of where Highway 101 bike ped overcrossing will go. Because when we just did our work plan with our bike ped advisory board, we realized that we don't really have a comprehensive plan of how to get people to the bridge with low stress facilities. So it would be a first of its kind for us, which would be really exciting. That's what I've got.
Thank you. Appreciate the updates. Anyone else have anything? Yes.
Just like to draw everybody's attention to the end of the agenda packet, which does contain a number of announcements for funding opportunities. Make sure you scroll through those before you get the packet away.
All right. Thank you. Going once. Adjourn.